So hey, that's fun. I originally drafted up an entire script breaking down the first and second mainline LEGO movies, mashing together comparisons, what made the second one fail, and how it could be turned around for a potential threequel, only to realize that the LEGO movie isn't coming back. Or at least it's not confirmed yet beyond a simple idea Chris Pratt mentioned once. There goes all that hard work. If it does get confirmed, then someone please poke me, because the video's already pieced together. No, the LEGO movie is coming back, just not the mainline ones yet. Today we're talking about the twisted reality of the superhero franchise of films with the LEGO Batman movie. And after wasting 5 hours watching the other two films and essaying about them, why not change directions entirely and jump to this bandwagon instead? Plus, my last B-movie video was manually taken down by DreamWorks in some regions, despite it actually being a review, and a positive one at that. Gotta love YouTube. Now, prior to making this video, I hadn't actually seen the LEGO Batman movie before. I know, I'm sorry, I heard it was good, but it just didn't line up with me for some reason. The movie released in February 2017, same year as Ninjago, and was the start of the LEGO movie series' decline in success. But not the case for the LEGO Batman movie itself, since it garnered pretty favourable reviews and was an all-round success, with part of its success being that it wasn't trying to be too much like the original LEGO movie, but was a great little joy in its own right, and a beautiful love letter to DC fans with its crazy reach of pop culture references to practically every single Batman appearance prior. And these successes were clearly felt as a sequel has been confirmed to be in production by the director. So enough talk about the general achievements of this film, let's dig back into the year of 2017 and see just what made this film the success it is, and how its elements could potentially be reimagined in an upcoming sequel. So as I said before, in 2017, I skipped out on this film. I'd generally been a bit of a superhero nut, watching every Marvel superhero movie, and even popping in to see Batman v Superman, boy was that a mistake. But it was in the trailer sequence before this film that the LEGO Batman trailer was dropped on me. Now, during this time in my life, I was in the middle of university, with the trailer hitting halfway through my first year and the actual film dropping in my second. Deadlines were high, I was at a dramatic point in my life, and the Nintendo Switch was coming out in like a month, so can you blame me not seeing it really? The LEGO Batman was the last thing on my mind, but with nothing standing in my way in 2019, let's finally delve into this supposed lost gem. And I gotta say, it completely blew me out of the water. Somehow this successor to the LEGO movie managed to keep so much of that wit and charm from the original and place it in a whole new scenario. Plus, Batman plus comedy is a combo that works so incredibly well, despite the source material clearly not being built for it. I can see within the first 5 minutes of this film why so many people find this guy to be the best rendition of Batman. I mean, he's saying what we're all thinking. So the movie begins with a clear establishment between the relationship of the Joker and Batman. Makes sense, right? They are the two most iconic characters in this Gotham world. But right from the very get-go, this movie sets up their connection as being something entirely different to what we've seen before. Kinda. Joker goes forth with this crazy bombastic plan, and Batman is there in full force to stop him. And during that final confrontation, it becomes clear that the two don't quite see eye to eye on their pairing, with Batman having virtually no regard for Joker as a prioritized villain, citing Superman as being a far bigger rival. Meanwhile, the Joker is absolutely crushed by the rejection and is obsessed over the idea of being the ultimate #1 villain in Batman's eyes. This sort of relationship isn't overtly new in the Batman universe, as some versions of Joker do seem heavily dependent on Batman to give them any kind of purpose in life, but this clear, upfront presentation, alongside the jokey atmosphere of the whole LEGO movie, immediately puts us in a whole new setting and tone for a film with characters we've been able to recognize for decades. And my god is it refreshing. Sure, The Dark Knight is all about darkness and tragedy and all sorts of grim surroundings, but somehow, mashing him into a world like this works. It works incredibly fantastically. So let's start off with those jokes, shall we? Batman as a franchise isn't really known for its jokes, and when it does try for some, they're a little unexpected and almost unfitting. Though not always the worst things in the world. But here, in the LEGO Batman movie, there's jokes absolutely everywhere. The very first seconds of the film have this witty meta commentary from Batman and his cartoonized character traits, and that adjustment of his personality alone opens up for so many other avenues to be explored and to entertain with, but we'll certainly get to that later on. Many of the jokes choose to use the source material to its full advantage, as they're not limited to this version of Batman or the immediate events going on in this particular rendition, unlike every other Batman appearance. There are a multitude of references to prior Batman sources, and all are given the comedic tongue-in-cheek treatment to be both a love letter for fans as well as comedy for all. Whether that's through Alfred describing all of Batman's filmic appearances and connecting them to weird phases of his life, or pointing out an extended collection of Batman villains of the past, including Condiment King, who is a real yet unbelievable Batman villain in concept. The delivery on so many of these jokes work fantastically to simultaneously respect that massive history being held on the shoulders of this massive franchise, whilst reinventing it and creating all the more witty writing through presenting it in a refreshing and hilarious manner. Every time a moment like this pops up, it is just so enjoyable to see. Then there's the little things like the classic Batman theme popping up mid-action scene or from the honking of a vehicle. But let's get back to Batman himself. After all, this is an entirely new version of the superhero once again, and he alone stands out as one big highlighted joke for the film to play around with. Now, I'm really bad with celebrity names, especially voice actors, but finding out that the VA for this guy is Will Arnett, and finding out that they were also the voice behind BoJack Horseman really threw me off for a moment. And then it made all the more sense, and I couldn't unhear it. But no, this Batman is his own beast of comedy, with many of the new standard character traits he owns being extrapolated into a whole new form, with him being narcissistically confident, childish in demeanor and the choices he makes, as well as really driving home the idea that he's just not much of a people person, and not really a nice guy to be around most of the time. Some of these elements are undeniably prevalent in other Batman series, but here all of these pieces come together in a way that is entirely new for the character, and yet somewhat makes sense. And that suspension of disbelief is certainly something that the script uses to its advantage. You think Christian Bale's Batman would ever make songs about taxes and leg day? No, probably not. But an over-the-top cartoony Batman that's all about money and physical prowess, I guess could kinda get into that for a quick gag. The Lego Batman is a caricature of himself, and it's fantastic to see what new scenarios this brings with it. I love that even though he is a multi-billionaire with seemingly everything he could ever want, almost, he still struggles with the simpler things like a dodgy HDMI cable or simple microwavable food. It's something that makes sense for a character as lonely as Batman, and yet isn't really explicitly explored or made fun of in any other forms, as the comedic style simply doesn't fit the tone and versions of every other respective Batman. This closed-off, dismissive version of Batman also allows for jokes with the rest of the cast of the Justice League, as it's revealed in this movie that they went ahead and had a Justice League party without Batman, simply because he is the least likable character of the gang. Again, opening up all of them for jokes that wouldn't really fit the tone of their other appearances. And then, very much like the original, there are all sorts of Lego-related witty jokes, such as how below Gotham there is nothing because the city is just a big Lego piece with nothing physically below it. Or how there's meta jokes about holding the music because this is clearly all part of one big film. The cartoony, over-the-top vibe of this film also allows for some physics to go out of the window too, like how when Alfred pops up unexpectedly during an emotional moment, Bruce accidentally kicks him across the room and into a piano, which, although is kind of a lol random kind of joke, I really like it for how goofy and exaggerated it all is. Subverting the cliche of characters popping up out of nowhere and giving us a moment in a scene that seriously could not be replicated in any other version of Batman for a multitude of reasons. And this example works quite nicely as a segue into our next point about just what makes the Lego Batman so good and exhilarating when thinking about a sequel: the direction and style of the film. Obviously, with the massive shoes left by the original Lego movie, the Lego Batman movie had a lot of pressure to achieve that magic a second time. And while that pressure clearly got the better of certain other Lego spin-offs, here, a lot of the frantic charm is kept and accentuated all the more, which wholeheartedly surprised me in the end. The first movie is sporadic and in your face, constantly jumping from one beat to the next in a chaotic cacophony of fun that just makes you want to break down the film frame by frame. And the Lego Batman movie very much has that same vibe in many of the action scenes. It continues the continuity of Batman being a master builder, which only allows them to show off more of the same tricks of flashing around an object as it's built to some upgraded form. It's great to see again. That being said, there are some interesting diversions from the original directorial choices and techniques used to represent the world. I don't entirely like the changes, but they're minor, so I wouldn't exactly say that they are an overall negative point on the film. But unlike the first, not everything is made out of Lego bricks anymore. One of the very first scenes of the movie shows real smoke. Not some obscure Lego brick animation to represent the movement of smoke, it's just the real thing. And in this scenario, it almost seems to heighten the Lego experience. It's not invasive and doesn't exactly tarnish the legacy of the shot, but it's a tad less of that Lego aesthetic that we saw from the first film. But that whole idea does also pop up elsewhere, not in smoke form, but water. I'm obsessed with the continuity of the first film, how the entire sea, or just a simple shower, uses tiny blue bricks to represent water. For the Lego Batman movie, when Batman does a comedic spit take with water, he spits out actual water and not any tiny blue bricks. It's tiny stuff, I know, but I kind of feel I would have preferred if Batman actually spewed out some Lego bricks here. To me, it just could have been upgraded. It was, I don't know, it's tiny, alright? Quite a nick bit, right? We'll go back to something a bit more normal now, shall we? The sound design. The Lego Batman movie does something else that subtly appeared in the first movie, I believe, though here it's a tad more noticeable. Or maybe I was just looking out for it more here. The exterior context of this world is that everything is moving because a kid is playing with it, right? That's the whole concept of a being playing with Lego toys, right? And so because of that, there are no real guns. The kids don't have an actual gun to reference the sound of a gunshot, all they have is their voices. And that bleeds into the Lego movies too. Every sound effect is made through human voices, or at least a good chunk of them are. I mean, just listen to this. Only encapsulating more that idea that this world is fake and a moment of play for humans, putting these stories together themselves. That's awesome attention to detail. I hope that is across the entire film, because I just love that idea. And then there's your standout one-off moments of cool direction. You know, there's not much to say there. It's cool, you know? Looking at the bigger picture, all of these pieces come together to make the Lego Batman's direction and style an amazing piece of work. It successfully keeps up that intensity of the original with some new ventures and upgrades if you want to look at it that way, and small attention to detail which only enrich the whole experience further. So let's stop dilly-dallying around all of the techniques and choices behind the Lego Batman movie and actually talk about how the story all comes together and how comedy can possibly be achieved in the gritty world of Batman's Gotham. Because apparently it was achieved, garnering some fairly good scores on reviewer sites despite the strange combination of the two elements. And it certainly impressed me. So the early stages of the film's story are all elements you can recognize pretty quickly. Joker and Batman fight, Batman is home feeling lonely and off to himself, dealing with his own isolation. There's moments of genuine emotion from Batman, which though you'd think would be unfitting in a Batman world this cartoony, to me, I almost find that tragedy and emotion is all the more hard-hitting when it is surrounded by comedy from every other angle. The contrast, at least to me, always seems to hit a bit harder. Anyway, Batman is then going to a formal event as Joker is making plans for his next big rival move. At the event, Batman meets and unexpectedly adopts Dick Grayson and meets the new commissioner and falls a little in love with her, though that is quickly unrooted as she demands for real change, real laws, teamwork and accountability with Batman, everything he hates. Joker then crashes the party with all of the DC gang, fights and surrenders, allowing himself and most everyone else to be caught and taken to Arkham Asylum. Now they're off the market, and so Batman has nothing to do. It's not exactly like he can be with his family now. With Batman in a rut, he's forced to take responsibility and raise his son, who's been living in the manor for like a week, Dick Grayson. He does this by adopting him as a sidekick to Batman and using him to get what he wants, the Phantom Projector, from Superman's lair to chuck Joker into the Phantom Zone, something far more severe than Arkham Asylum. The perfect execution of the heist seems to resonate with Batman as he feels emotion and pride for seemingly the first time, I guess. With his plan all coming together, he banishes Joker to the Phantom Zone against the wishes of pretty much everyone around him, as he wants to stay unregulated, and the event even seems to be exactly what the Joker himself wants. Surely a defeat for Batman then. add on to that, Harley Quinn has been out and about this whole time and uses the opportunity to crash in, take the projector and free all of the villains in one fell swoop. Meanwhile, in the actual Phantom Zone, the LEGO movie once again flexes its IPs by giving us a villainous version of the great character conglomerate with Voldemort, the Eye of Sauron, King Kong, Wicked Witch, Medusa, and Daleks. It's the same concept as before, but man is it goofy and fun to see them all share the screen together. And all of them are released from the Phantom Zone, ready for a massive finale. Sauron finds the location of the Batcave and all of them inhabit there, now renaming the place as Joker Island. Joker learns of Batman's secrets, such as his love for rom-coms, utilizes all of his Bat vehicles for some more eye candy, and that
Bruce Wayne is Batman. Roommate?
Batman, Robin, Barbara, the Commissioner, and Alfred are a four-piece team now who have a whole fight sequence on a plane with dramatic savior moments as one would expect in these kind of action scenes. And Sauron is defeated by the Sea Monster, clearly not quite meshing as well as a team. And though there's a happy families moment between the four of them, Batman suddenly rejects them all and shoots them away. Batman works alone. And so, Batman confronts the Joker alone and it doesn't quite go in his favor, though it's a great scene about how the Joker rants about truly hating Batman. And with that, Batman is banished into the Phantom Zone himself, where he gets to self-reflect on how he belongs here anyway. After all, he's a guy that's done a lot of bad things really. And in a moment of clarity, he barters his way out, promising to return if he can save his friends and banish the other villains back into their place. And with one final battle, Batman appears, apologizes but is unforgiven, and the DC villains Joker had abandoned join their side for a two-piece army crashing against each other. Slowly, the villains are sucked away into the Phantom Zone one by one, though Joker's plans of blowing up the city with a bomb succeeds, splitting the city in half, and the only way to keep it together is by using their heads and physically piecing their Lego heads end to end. Though it's not enough. Joker needs to be convinced. If there's no Gotham, there's no Joker fight either. And after admitting that Joker is important to Batman in a great comedic spin of kind of romance, they connect and the city is saved. Batman heads towards the Phantom Zone but is granted freedom by Phyllis, the talking brick of that zone, and everyone leaves happy. Joker and gang are content and Batman lives his normal homely life with his new family. The film starts on black and ends on white. A whole mini journey of a new type of Batman, and yet incredibly familiar to everything we know. Of all things, the story really holds up to me. It has all of the key elements I would hope to see. There's witty gags and jokes from this comedic take on Batman, the Lego sense of it shows off its dynamic range with all sorts of villainous appearances, and the script allows for jabs to be made at every other Batman appearance in existence. And though the fact that there's so many characters meant that there was little individual development for every single one of them, the most important was that of Batman and Joker's, and there was certainly plenty to divulge there. The parody on their relationship also worked great, whilst also gave us something a tad refreshing, and the other characters that did appear were fun all the way through. And with a sequel in the works, we can only expect even more of the best of them. I personally loved Alfred in this rendition, though I always love Alfred honestly, and I cannot wait to see what new directions they choose to take this goofy world of Batman. Will Joker still be the absolute center point of the film, or will another DC villain take the reins? Give me more condiment, king, dammit! Or if they do want to spread out their IP wings again, who could possibly take the form? Superhero knockoffs? Marvel? I highly doubt that one. Whatever the case, after seeing the massive success and the ability to keep the magic up from the original film, I'm confident that whichever direction it takes, I for one will be having a whale of a time. Because sometime in 2022, the Lego Batman movie is coming back. My name's been Dazz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit. I'm surprised it took me that long to watch the Lego Batman movie. I was really missing out. I mean, I'm only 2 years late, but even still, man, that was a good film to watch. I'm surprised how much I liked that.